funny. Let's get it advanced now. Okay, not advancing. So it sounds funny, but I started in the Air Force. I was a logistics officer in a small base called Minot, North Dakota. I had 1,500 people, and I actually had manufacturing in my operation. And then when I got out, they said, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I don't know." And that started my manufacturing career. But the funny story is when my first job was with Corning Glass and fiber optics. And when I called my dad and I said, "Dad, I'm going to join Corning." And he looked at me and he said, "Let's see, we sent you to college, you went to the Air Force, and now you're going to make plates." And I said, "No, Dad, I'm going to do fiber optics." And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "It's a fish line that you can talk through." And he thought that was really great because he was a fisher, but so I want to make it as entertaining as I can. I've actually been the guy that's moved stuff offshore, onshore, transferred it all over the world. So my last count was I've actually done about 26 different countries. I physically lived in about 3, Korea, Mexico, and China. So I can give you different styles in that. But what I wanted to do is, so how many are you into AI right now? Okay. So if you like the title, guess who wrote my title? AI. I said, do this, this, and this, and it came up to this. Okay. So we're going to talk about manufacturing, but you're going to find out there's a lot more involved in manufacturing than most people believe. And so what we're going to do is sort of take you up to, how many have heard of the 4th and 5th generation of manufacturing? Okay, good. We're going to talk about that. How many have heard about advanced and digital manufacturing? You know the difference? We're going to talk about that. So what I've done, how I've structured it, is first of all, I'm calling it setting the stage. So I want to sort of ground everybody so you have sort of the same baseline. So if I throw acronyms or wording, you'll at least know what I'm talking about. Then we'll start getting into some interesting demographics and what you're going to see a lot of what's bringing people to Arizona. And keep in your mind revenue and people. Okay. So one of the first things that I want to show you is why companies are motivated today. This is sort of a laundry list of business priorities, and this can change. And the way business is today, it can change hourly. So at this data point, you're looking at operational efficiency. You're looking at customer growth. A lot of the outsourcing when it started into Mexico and in China was actually based on, people will say cost. It was really opening new markets. And that's why they did it. So if you look at it, and here's one thing to remember, this is sort of the thing I always point out. Cash is king, profit is queen. Because that's what motivates companies, because ultimately they have to service their stockholders. So they're going to look at advantages. So we're going to get into some stuff on the business side as we talk about manufacturing, because it is big business. When you see some of these numbers, you'll be quite surprised about what these numbers are. So one of the things, if you're into the industry, into what they call the Industrial Revolution, and 2 things that drive the Industrial Revolution is technology and people. We are right now in what they call 4.0. And that is basically the Industrial Revolution of where, guess what? We're using a lot of different technology now to help us in the lines of manufacturing. So when you say manufacturing, so you say, oh, guess what? 3D, cybersecurity, IoT, all of that plays an integral part. So if you see up there, you're also going to hear connected factory. You're going to hear smart factory. All of that is the same thing. In fact, if you talk about the Industrial Revolution, it is in fact manufacturing 4.0. Now, the significance here, if you see at the bottom, a lot of people don't understand this. These are the elements of 4.0. So if you look over here, a lot of people, so how many are into 3D printing? Okay. I got my wife a 3D printer. That's actually additive manufacturing. So you're going to layer it, layer it, layer it, layer it. Additive. So that's 3D. Next is, this is fun, where you're getting into virtual. You're looking at, oh, they're wearing the goggles. I actually helped development of the glasses, or actually the helmets for the Air Force, for the pilots. So fun stuff. Next is, oh, look at this. Delivering, okay, a drone, a single drone. So do you know on the west side, actually of Phoenix, Walmart has actually approved for the delivery of packages less than 5 pounds with drones. So the reality is here. Then this one, big data. So prior to my current company, I was with a small company called SAP. Have you ever heard of them? And to tell you big data and what they're doing there, we did a report one day, and it took it 3 days to run to get the report. With new data and some of the S4 stuff that we did it in about 3 milliseconds, same data. So with the technology advancing, and here's a benchmark that I use. Technology changes just because of hardware about every 6 months. Software, 16 days. I've been in manufacturing. I actually had to do making cell phones, actually try to figure out how I was going to sync the software into the chips so you could have the phone. That's how crazy it's getting out there. Down here, everybody into the cloud, right? A lot of ramifications of the cloud. Biggest is cybersecurity. That is a big area now in manufacturing. As you integrate all of the equipment, how are you going to deal with this? And this leads us into cybersecurity. In SAP, we were being hacked every 15 minutes. So you can imagine the cybersecurity. This is a fun one. How many are familiar with digital twins? Okay, that's reality. So it's fun that you hold this thing up and you float it through space and, oh, look, I want to change this. I want to do this like this. So I'm a guy with the new toys. I love the new toys. They're really fun to deal with. Simulation, if you've ever done it before, now the software is so sophisticated, I can literally plug it in and build a factory and then move it around in that landscape, it whatever I want to do, and come up with optimized flow, what the factory looks like. And then I basically zip out the architect drawing and then hand it and say, now let's go build it. And then the last one, and this is how I feel sometimes, integration. Oh, gee, I was actually just on a client this morning down in Tucson. They said, how are we going to integrate it? And he says, well, what do you do? Well, we got to do this. We got to do this. And I said, we'll figure it out. So this is a big factor, is how you integrate it with your software. And so you have a lot of standalone software, a lot of fun tools out there and toys out there. And it's all sounds great. This is one of the biggest challenges in manufacturing, is how you integrate all of this hardware and software and get them to talk to each other. So interesting enough, you know what the statistic is how many people are still using spreadsheets out there and doing annual, like, oh, no, hey, we're sophisticated. Try 60 to 75%. Okay? So this is really interesting. And this actually got into discussion when I'm sort of raised my hand to my boss and I said, so what are we? He said, okay, here we go again. And I said, our title is, we're Digital Manufacturing Systems North America. And I said, you know, the title's wrong. And he said, oh no, what is this? And it's, guess what? When you get the advanced and digital manufacturing, and they're different. So advanced is sort of the whole umbrella. And then the digital is actually the componentry, the network, and tying it together. Now, a lot of people think they're the same, but actually they're very different. But it's now with all the lines, they're really getting blurred to what that really is. Okay, but key now, if you look at digital manufacturing, and people don't realize this, there are 3 distinct components there. One you have here, life cycle. Guess what? How you document it, what you're going to build, what you're hopefully the end product is going to look like. Here's the fun, the smart factory, what it's going to do and how you're going to work. And here's the third one. How many have heard the term value chain? How many have heard the term supply chain? Guess what? They're different. People don't realize that. So here we're dealing with, guess what? An end-to-end scenario. So since I've been in manufacturing, I've seen change now. So like before, it was like, well, we're only going to go to one level of supplier and say no. In fact, I did another presentation with another group and I sent it to them and they said, well, we didn't realize all those people were involved. So you're looking at the supplier, the company, your distribution network, and ultimately the customer. So how many of you like to look up on the, okay, where's my package? I ordered it in Google, where's my package? So that's how sophisticated we're getting. And guess what? They're doing that in manufacturing too. I've actually did it when we were SAP. We were actually looking at what our raw material suppliers were delivering to us. We had to know because we had to look at what the end commitment is. Now, this is what I've done here and said, okay, this sounds really great. Oh, wow, new toys. I want to be the first one on the block. I always put my hand up first. These, and I want to say, this changes, and it changes by company. That's the key thing to look at. And for some of you snapping, I think we're going to furnish the slides to you too, so you get to see it. But if this was a survey that Deloitte did, and Deloitte is one of the leaders in the new world of manufacturing. So look at the top one, adoption and culture. So guess what? For not picking on my group, there's 5 generations in the workforce. So for the baby boomers in World War II, what's the #1 fear? Technology. That sounds funny, but there are a lot of people really afraid of technology. And also, I've got into people and they'll say, I've been doing this for years. Why do I want to play with this new toy? And well, it's going to make you efficient in that. And they said, well, all right, okay, whatever. So that becomes a big sale. Second, resource and timing. Of course, everybody wants it done yesterday, right? We were doing that this morning. I'm doing a proposal. And I said, so when do you want it? And he said, at the end of June. And I said, nobody's ever done that before. Then my boss hit me and I said, we'd love to do that. We'll just go figure that out. I mean, that's the reality of what's going on. Internal funding sounds easy. The biggest problem that the technical people, so I've gone from the technical into the business side. My last project, I spent more time writing business cases on why they needed it so they could get to the stockholders or to the top management and say, oh, we really need it. And they say, well, I know how to put it together. And I said, you're not selling it. Okay. So here's a benchmark for you. When you put a package together, do you know what's world-class for an ROI on a project today? Less than 1 year. So you got to look at, here it is 1 year, but how am I going to pay for it? Oh, I only want 2 million. Okay, how fast can you pay for it? That's a true benchmark when you put projects together. Then implementation, like I said, I'm an agilist. I'm a certified agilist. So you're looking at, okay, I'm not going to do the traditional timeline. I want to go do this. We were arguing how long a sprint is. I'm saying 2 weeks, but it varies based on company. Timing is now becoming a factor on how fast that you can implement it. And by the way, if you're in manufacturing, don't stop the line. That'll stop your job very fast because guess what? That product or service is revenue. And that's what drives the company. I spent probably one of the interesting parts of my career for 5 years reporting directly to the CFO. Changed me completely on how I looked at a company. You know, it's like, hey, I got the widgets, whatever. And he says, I got to do this and this and this. And I said, that's your magic. Big factor. Training costs. This is probably, it's funny, it's this far down, but to me, this is one of the most significant ones on why technology fails. The users aren't trained. When I was at SAP, I got pulled into a project And you know what the comment by the users was? This is too techy. I can't do my job. I completely redid the whole training program. Training is a very key factor. So like I said, there's 5 generations out in the workforce. So if you're like a Y or a Z in generation, very easy to pick up. But when you get into some of the other generations, you're like, oh, you know, what is this and whatever. I push a button, it goes into magic. That's your answer. And I said, well, hey, sounds pretty good anyway. And then big one, if you come from an engineering background, no offense, I'm not an engineer, I'm an ops guy, is, oh, look at this. This can do this and this. You know what the statistic is for the amount of actual usage of a product is by a user? Guess? 15%. So you've got this product that'll do everything in the world, and you think, oh, wow, and oh, but you can do that. I don't want that. But, well, it's in there. So it's watching what the toy is, what it can do, and then really selecting to the technology. So like this morning, I said, this sounds funny. I'm a user. I come from a user first and enabling technology. What do you need to do your job? Let's start at the basic. And they go, oh, you know, can you do the cloud? Can I put the symbology barcoding on my smartphone? And I said, oh, okay, this could be a tough one to sell. And the answer was yes. And they said, well, can we get past the pen and paper? And I said, yes, but really, what do you want? So that really becomes a key thing. And then, like you said, system selection, all of this. Key thing this on here, when you think about why it's not going to be successful, the key thing is, what does the user want and what do they really need? And they can be significantly different. So I threw this up there. So we talk about manufacturing, and oh, guess what? There's the star, there's Arizona, okay? And by the way, this is actually the number of manufacturing regions within the United States. Now that's onshore, but now you have nearshore, and now you have offshore. So here, get this. How many think that Mexico is offshore versus nearshore? What would you say? Nearshore. Why is it nearshore? And what's the definition of nearshore? No. Interesting comment. That's what I thought when I answered it myself. Culturally and language very similar. That's what nearshore is about. So I've actually done nearshore in Czechoslovakia. It was like, well, that's not my idea, that's farshore. And they said, no. So it's really interesting when you say when you're going to move a factory and where it is. So we're competing within the United States with this, but guess what? When I set up a factory, I met with the governor of Jalisco, and he says, what do you want? I said, I just want to put a little factory up in your city. And he says, what do you want? You want us to move the bus line? You want whatever, you to get more people, whatever. So think that into consideration. All of these people are competing in different states. When I was in California looking at moving a factory or factories, I actually met several governors. And they're like, would you move your factory? And I said, so what are you going to get? And we're going to get into that, okay? But so this is when you look at it. So we're in like the West, the mountain region and that. But that's key now as you think about what's bringing people to Arizona. Now this is fun. So I'm new, 2 years to Arizona. So I'm learning the map. This is fun with the counties. I'm still learning what all the counties are. There are actually 5 manufacturing centers in Arizona. And here's one for you. And I just learned this when I was at a trade meeting. So you'll hear Greater Phoenix. You heard that title? You know that Greater Phoenix, which you think is Maricopa, also includes Casa Grande and Tucson. So that was really different. And that's why I think sometimes when we look at statistics and why it was skewed on what Phoenix or Greater Phoenix is doing, they really lost it because they just looked at Phoenix. So there's that. And then this is sort of the quickie of, okay, all of these factors on an operating advantage or a cost factor in that. So have you ever heard the term buying the business? Guess what? When I was at a presentation of an economic group, I said, so what makes you lose? And they said, guess what? Dollars. So it's what these different states are throwing in to make it attractive for you to come to their state. And believe me, I was surprised. I was running a corporation, and all of a sudden these governors are here. Well, guess what? You know, we'll give you no tax for 5 years. Or guess what? We'll let you depreciate your equipment differently. So that's going to strengthen your P&L. All of those are active discussions. So you'd say, this is manufacturing. So manufacturing is also business. So that's one thing to do. And this is how the world of manufacturing has changed. When I started my career was, I can make that part. And all of a sudden I got into finances, then I got into systems, and then it's like all of that comes to play into manufacturing. So what you're going to see is just a couple of areas here. How many have ever dealt with a foreign trade zone? Okay. Just to let you know, you can have a foreign trade zone in your own plant. You could have it in a city or geographically. Gives you a lot of financial advantage of how you can move international trade in and out. And I'll show you a chart pretty soon. Military reuse. This was sort of interesting as I'd see this. As they shut down bases, those bases belong to the Department of Defense. And what's happening now, as they leave, they're actually making those facilities available to the states, the real estate, literally selling it to them and say, hey, you can use it for development, you know, whether you want to do a residential area, you want to do manufacturing. So this becomes a key incentive. So this is, like I'll say, is a laundry list. And so when you negotiate with the company in manufacturing, all of these come into play. So you're going to go, remember, back to the business and say, why do you want to be here? And of course, the financial guy is going to look at him or her, excuse me. My wife gets me on my case all the time. It's like, do I look like a guy? No comment. And it's the bottom line. So if you want to do your MBA course, I always remember it's called Dollars and the Bottom Line. That was the whole 2-year course that I did. So, and by the way, that's really intimidating sometimes to a manufacturing person. They're like, I just want to make the product. I don't want to care about this or whatever, this and that. You'd be amazed on how many people are now being trained in the financial aspects of making product and that, even on the line, not only in the US and other countries. So what I did here, this was really interesting. So these are the top 10 manufacturers in the state of Arizona. And if you notice, only 2 in the Phoenix area. But if you point out to the right, guess what? There's looking at where the other centers are within the United States, or within Arizona. So that's why I'm saying you can't only look at Greater Phoenix, but you look at that. Then interesting, 2% women owned, 10% publicly owned, 11% import raw materials. And so raw materials has a lot of different definitions. I just look at it, it's whatever it takes to make that product. And then look at the last one, 29% are distributed internationally. So that's why a free trade zone can become a very critical part of your strategic and operational element in a manufacturing environment.
Does that include Honeywell selling our secrets to the Chinese?
By the way, I lived in China. I went to China and set up a factory. And it's funny you said that. So I was setting up a manufacturing plant, and they came to me and they said, "Oh, Mr. John, oh, your factory is bad." And I said, "Oh, thank you. I got to set it up." "So what's wrong?" "Oh, not enough red." I said, "Red means danger." And they said, "No, happiness, prosperity." I said, okay. And what else? Oh, by the way, replace the front door because in feng shui, you have to have a turnstile. The money comes in and out. And I'm like, okay, anything else? This was the killer. So you can imagine me going to the CFO and I'm saying, can you give me $5,000 so I can go hire a dragon dancer? And he said, no more late evenings with you and the team. And I said, no. Seriously, we grew the plant 7X in 1 year. And guess what? I'm always accused to the, what? Hold it up closer. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Accept it. Okay. We'll whip through it because some of this just is more reference. So the key was in their culture, their whole success wasn't them. It was, I picked the right dragon. So you have to be very culturally sensitive. And with today's environment, the same is internally. Here's a fun thing. So look at this. In Greater Phoenix, there are 24 cities in Greater Phoenix, and it's making it one of the biggest areas. And then what I did here, the reason it's 19, there are 19 business industries in the world that are all the same. This shows you where manufacturing is as from a revenue standpoint and a people standpoint. This is, look at what they do. This is a list out of the book code list of what the top manufacturers are in, guess what? Phoenix. So you see a whole different list. So if you look it up, there's a lot of different things. And then, so like I said, AI went in and said, do this. Can you give me some numbers? Look at the numbers. So it's based on people and revenue. No T's, no trillions, not there yet, but everything is billions. So now you're really understanding revenue, people. And that sort of wrap it up. What I did here is when you think about it, you have what I call economic groups now lobbying and fighting to get it to their city. So you're going to see economic councils going on. You're going to see all kinds of state, federal, and government agencies involved in doing this. And then what you have too is what I have is these are the top sort of like organizations professionally that are in there as business too. And by the way, there are a lot more. I just went in and asked for the top 5. So professionally, it's a big area. Key thing, if you think about manufacturing. So I'm also a project manager, program manager. There actually is a PMO. In quality, there's a 4.0. So check if you're in a professional organization what that means. And then now my ASQ friends, I didn't slip this in. This is the AI did this, but you'll see quality is one of them. So when I talk about what are the top professional groups working on advanced or digital manufacturing, this is what the system kicked out on me. And then, of course, schools. I was just a couple of weeks ago talking to the director of ASU and their advanced manufacturing system. We just put in a new digital manufacturing facility for our company in Illinois. And it's fun, all the toys, because guess what? We want to teach our internal people. We want to teach the customers too. And this is what the next step is. And then here's an interesting one. How many, quickly, I'm watching the time. How many have heard ESG? Okay. Environmental, social, and governance. Watch that. That's going to have a major impact on manufacturing. And here's the different areas. And then this was fun. I said, if I was a manufacturer, what would I be concerned about besides everything? This is what they looked at. Tax policies. When you watch TV, what's the tax policy today? Of course, trade, environment, workforce. Workforce issues are not only confined to the United States. In Mexico, for a worker on the floor, they were giving flat screen TVs and $1,000 bonuses for factory workers to get them because they don't have people to help their factories. And then sort of wrapping it up, you could talk for days and hours on this. This is looking at top attractors, tax incentives, proximity. Look at who we're next. We're next to California, GDP, okay? A lot of market there. Skilled workforce, big issue. Do they want to work on site? Do they not want to work on site? What's the model? This is funny. Quality of life, and I put this balance here is, so when I came to here, it was $1 million was a house, $1 million. California, not a big deal, but now whatever. So look at the community, economic growth, opportunities, increased tax revenue, technology advancement, and then the big one, organizations and education. Big puzzle questions. We're out of time, but I'm going to be around so you can ask me questions. And want to thank you. So that's manufacturing really quick.
Big round of applause for John Choate. John, thank you so much for being here tonight. And we weren't going to pull you off stage, but if you do have questions still for John, you are going to get a chance to ask them. But we want everybody to get up and head your way over across to CEI. We're going to be starting there in about 20 minutes. So our next presentation is at 6:30 TSMC. So stretch your legs if you need, use the restroom if you need to. 6:30 TSMC, and City of Phoenix will be talking about the next big development. Thanks, guys. I don't know. Did he share? Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Oh, good. Come on over. Yeah.
Hello, ASQ Phoenix folks. This is Hillary Werner. I am back on just to let you know that our meeting is concluding for the evening. Since we are on a different agenda tonight, we're closing in a different fashion than normal. I do appreciate all of you joining us this evening, and we look forward to having you at our next meeting in April. All right, thank you all so much. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.